Alright, we'll check the headspace on this. We'll start with a CIP go gauge. Obviously we know this one is going to close, but we'll put it in here anyway. Hopefully you can hardly show up. CIP go. That's why I've painted them. Kind of see it. Anywho, let's have a looky. Bolt is stripped, in case you're wondering. There's no fire control group in it or anything. I'll trigger, hammer, everything's out of it. Of course, it's not like that's a live round or anything. But alrighty, let's see. Typically, you would want finger pressure or pretty good. I wouldn't say pretty good pressure. You want some pressure on it. There's no minimum, so going in just like that right there is still considered, I guess you could say okay, but it's on the really low side. Was it like that from the factory or from shooting? We know Rob said that he was checking it, even though he didn't get any of it on camera. He was checking and the no-go would not go until he hit the 5,000 round mark. He checked 3,500 rounds. It wouldn't go into battery on a no-go, which is what we got here. CIP no-go, Manson. And we all saw in the video that at 5,000 rounds it would close. So, let's have a looky. Moderate finger pressure, just barely doing it like that, it does it, but if you put a little pressure on it, into lockup. Now Rob said it would not go into lockup when he checked it at 3,500. He didn't get video evidence of that, but now he has learned that people will you'll be held accountable for what you say on there or what you don't show. So his Arsenal is showing, or the Arsenal SLR107 I think he's testing right now. The very first video he showed it would not close on a no-go gauge. Too bad he didn't get it at this, but people on the AK files, myself included, were saying you need to keep checking the headspace on that, and he decided to finally film it, but it wasn't until he was already pretty much done with the test. So, but there is no minimum, so if the go is set really loose from the factory, or if a home builder was setting the headspace and they set it where the go gauge would go like we saw this one do, then a no-go will actually go in there just like that with a little bit of finger pressure. Don't take much pressure. Most people would say no, 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 danger, danger. Well, it's not ideal. Definitely not ideal. That means that the gun has built-in wear into it, or it has worn. Rob said it would not go, so obviously it has worn to the point to where it will go. But let's check it with a Sammy. You can get this here. It says clay. It's claimer, whatever. But those are Sammy specs. Since this chamber actually is Sammy specs, but they're between the Go, Sammy, and CIP. The CIP ends up being 2 thousandths shorter, so you get a 2 thousandths tighter headspace with the CIP. I do not know about the Go, I mean the no-go in the field, but anyway, they should be relatively close. It really shouldn't matter a whole hell of a lot. But it does close. It takes a little bit more pressure to close on this one, maybe. I do not have a force gauge, but it does close on it. A force gauge would tell us exactly where we're at. Like I said, there's no minimum, so it can be from 0, which is basically what we've got now, up to 33 pounds on a go gauge. No more than 45 pounds on a no-go. Was that? I don't know if that's 45 pounds. I wouldn't say that it was, but without a force gauge and doing it properly, I can only tell by finger pressure. But let's check with a field gauge now. Now the only field gauge I have is a CIP. Get in focus. We'll check it. Here. Nope. It will not go. Nope. So it still has a little life left in it, but we don't know how much. If it went from not closing on the no-go at 3,500 but would close like it does now at 5,000, well, it's got 5,012 in it now. I put 12 rounds in it. Something's going wrong. But I noticed that there is a, if you can see that, little slot right there on the cam lug. A little slot right there. It's perfect. It's all nice and pretty and polished. I mean, that thing is perfect, like it was machined into it. Well, that's not supposed to be there. You see this little shiny spot right there? That is where that cam lug, when it goes into lockup or battery, wham, real hard. There's a lot of pressure even coming forward when it goes into lockup. That's where it's stopping. Right on that spot. That, you can see it, is where that groove is coming from. This cam lug with a go gauge in there would sit off of it. It would not make contact. Now obviously I'm doing this by hand, but there would be a gap in there. It wouldn't go all the way, it wouldn't cam all the way over like this one does with a go gauge in there. Matter of fact, I'll show that to you. All these are going to be some long ass videos. Alrighty, here's a go gauge. Obviously when you're setting or checking Headspace, you should have bolt and carrier together. But you can't always tell where the cam lugs or the locking lugs are at, because the bolt carrier will be in your way. So you can do this just for a visual inspection, but do not set Headspace this way. Look, see, it goes all the way over, no problem. Should not do that if it's properly Headspace, or if the Headspace has moved, it will make it all the way over there. That's how you get loose Headspace, or it becomes, you get excessive Headspace. Usually there's a gap in here with it, and then as it wears down, it will slide farther and farther and farther and farther and farther over till it can't go anymore, and then all of a sudden it just keeps growing. So we'll show you with a no-go right quick how it looks. There's our no. Put it in there. Now, see that gap in there? It won't go over any farther. Typically, that's where the go gauge would be. And you notice it doesn't, it would wiggle with the go gauge, but it will not wiggle or move because I'm putting pressure on here. There's no wiggle. That means that sucker is, it's got positive lockup everywhere. That's how you would want the go gauge to be, with a gap in between here. I've had people ask me, well, how much of a gap should that be for it to be proper Headspace? All of them are different. At 0, that cam lug will touch, or less than 0, it will touch. Up to 33 pounds, or where it's properly spec'd at, there will be a slight gap in there. But you can't set Headspace by setting the gap. You should just notice that, yeah, on a go gauge there should be a gap, about like that. But well, obviously this is much more loose because it's the no-go. So I just wanted to show that to you guys right quick. Alright, we saw with the RAS47 that it had that weird little mark on the side, and that with the go gauge and just the bolt doing a gap test, the cam lug would touch the side of the receiver. So let's look at this Wasser 1063 here. It's the only factory rifle I've got. Everything else I've built myself. So let's look. Oh, look, it's got a mark on it there. Hey, what do you know? There's a mark in here too. Why does it do that? Well, if you work the action on these things, like all of us do, we love the sound, we like working it, you're seeing how smooth it works. Everybody racks back, lets go of it. Well, what does that do? If you've got a properly head-spaced one, there should be a gap. So, see, there's a gap in there. So that cam lug's not going to touch. So why is there a mark? Well, we notice with the RAS47 with the go gauge in there, it goes all the way over and just stops right there. I think that's why the headspace keeps opening up, because it can't tighten on itself anymore. But why does this one have it? Well, no ammo in there or anything. When you start racking the slide, look, it goes right over, makes contact. That's where the marks are coming from. The main deal is when you have a go gauge in there, there needs to be a gap, or it doesn't need to be, but it's ideal or more ideal if it has the gap. We saw that the RAS47 also, when using everything like this to check headspace, it went into battery real easy. This is a factory gun, has a lot of rounds in it. I have no idea how many, but it's got a lot. Look, super easy. Nothing to it. But it does have the gap where the RAS47 does not. So I'll check you. I'll check you? No, I'll show you. That's what I'll do. I won't check you, I'll show you. I'll show you an actual home build I did. This is my daughter's rifle. It's built off of an Egyptian Mod E. In fact, this is one I used in my Headspace video. But you don't really notice much of a mark there. This rifle's hardly been used. I can guarantee you there was one there before I sandblasted and parkerized it and all that stuff. But there you can just see a slight mark there. You don't really see much here, but there is just a little bit of one here. Alright, where does the gap show up on this one? Or is there a gap? Get in there. Yes, look at that gap. A good gap in there. Nice tight headspace. Alright, let's check it the way you're supposed to actually check the headspace. You can't just go off of the gap. All rifles will be totally different. No two rifles will be the same as far as the gap goes. So let's do this right quick. Stay in there. Alrighty. We saw the RAS47 and the Wasser 1063 went in real easy. Look, this one doesn't go in that easy. Takes a little bit of snap. A little bit of a snap. Like I said, I set mine a little on the tighter side. After X amount of rounds, it'll be loose or begin to loosen up. So, that's just a little bit of information